In this tutorial, I will give an overview of property nodes in LabVIEW, how you can use them. So basically, every program or every programming IDE or programming language has or have properties. Typically, you can either set the properties from a configuration window or you can set them from your code. In this tutorial, I will show how you can do both. So typical properties can be color, title, text, disable, whatever. It could be hundreds. So each user interface component could have 100 of different properties. For instance, in Visual Studio, we have the properties windows where you can set the properties for selected object control on your user interface. But these properties can also be set from code. And in LabVIEW, we can set properties in the same way. We can typically right-click on different objects and then we can set them from the graphical user interface, or we can set them from code using so-called property nodes. Here you see a basic example how we can set the property from the graphical user interface. So here I have a numeric control, then I just right-click on it and then select properties. And then these properties windows will pop up, and then here you can set lots of properties for that specific item. For instance, you can set it to be enabled or disabled and gray. You could set the label visible, the caption visible or not. You can set the size of the item, either the height or the width, etc. And you have lots of other properties as well that you can set for specific items or objects on your front panel. So this is how you can set it manually from the graphical user interface in the LabVIEW programming environment. Here you see how you can set the same properties from your code or from your block diagram. So then basically in the block diagram you just right click on in this numeric control, you just right click on it and select create and property node. And then you will get a list of properties that you can use in your LabVIEW application. So here you see a basic example. Here we have an ordinary numeric control, and then I have right click on it and selected properties, and then I have just selected disabled and gray and clicked OK, and then you see it becomes disabled and gray. But I could use or do the same in code or from my block diagram, and then I just right click on this numeric control object on the block diagram, select create a property node, and then select the proper property node, in this case disabled, and then I just right click on it and create a constant, and then this constant automatically pop-ups, and then you can select between enabled, disabled and gray. And then if I select disabled and grayed out, then this numeric control will be disabled and gray out, and this operation will be the same operation as setting it from the graphical user interface here. Here you see another example. So you have to remember most of the properties can both be readable and writable. So in this case, I set the property node to be writable, and then I specify which value I want to have for this specific property. Or I can make it readable, and then I just, in this case, in the disabled property node, I can show the status on this specific property node on the front panel like this. So either you can set it to readable or writable. And here you see a basic example how I can use this in my block diagram logic. So here I have used the key focus property node for my numeric control, and here this is set to read. So then output of this one is either true or false in this key focus, and then I wire it to a case structure, and then inside here I set another property node to be writable, and then I set it. So in the case here we have false and true. So in the false I set the blinking to true, and in the true case I set blinking to false. So let's see how we can create these basic examples in the LabVIEW programming environment. So here I have opened my LabVIEW programming environment. Here I have the front panel, the gray window, and here I have the block diagram, this white window. So let's just create a basic numeric control like this, and then in order to set the properties manually from the programming environment, I just right click, select properties, and then this properties windows pops up, and then here I have lots of options and lots of properties. So let's select this one, disabled and gray, and then you see this numeric control becomes disabled and grayed. So I just click OK. So when I run my application now, I cannot change any values because it's disabled, and also it's grayed out like this. So this is maybe useful in many applications to use this property. So let's see how we can do that from our block diagram or the code. So then I put it back to enabled like this. Then I go to the block diagram, I right click here on this numeric control object on the block diagram, I right click, select create property node, and then I will get this list of available property nodes. It's many different property nodes that you can choose. In this case I need to find this disabled property node, then I just select this one, put it here, and then you can right click on it, and then you can change it to right. And now you see this small arrow is on the left side. This means that this property node is, you can write to it, while if I change all to read, then this small arrow is on the right side, and then this is readable. So let's change it back to writable like this. Then I can just right click on it, create a constant, and then you see automatically it gets the proper options and either enabled, disabled, or disabled and gray out. So if I select disabled and gray out, run the program, and then you see this becomes disabled and grayed out. And now I can here on the front panel I can select on it, select properties, and then I can go back to select it to enable like this. And when I run the program again, it will become disabled and gray out because I set the property node here. And let's see how we can read the property node in the code. So then I just remove this one, and then change all to read, and then I can right click here on the output on the right side, create an indicator, and then you see this indicator has been created here on the front panel. I can make it a little bit bigger, then I can run it, and now it's disabled and gray. I can change it here to disabled, run the program, and then you see the property now is disabled. So when I run the program, you know, I cannot change the value because it's disabled like this. Let's change it back to ordinary enabled, click OK, and run the program, and then you see now it's enabled. And when I run the program, I can change the value to something like this. So this is how you use the property node. You can either write to a specific property node, or you can read a specific property node like this. So let's make a very simple program and see how we can use those property nodes in our block diagram. So we have this basic numeric control, and now when I run the application, I want this to blink, and when I click my mouse inside, I don't want the blink to be stopped. So let's see how we can do that. Then we can use two different property nodes. I select property node. We have this key focus, this one. And let's create one more. Then I can just copy it and then just select another property. We have a property called blinking, which is here. And this one I want to read, and this one I want to write. So then I just change it to write. So now we have two property nodes, key focus and blinking. Let's just create a very simple program with a while loop, and then also add a button here that stops the program. Just put it here. Wire the stop button to the while loop. So this is the while loop. So then I wire this stop button here. This means that the program stops when you click on the stop button. I also put in a timer. That's a good practice to use inside a while loop. So then I just use this wait function, and then typically I just create a constant with 100 milliseconds or something. And then inside here, let's start by using this key focus. So then if I'm not clicking inside this numeric control, I want it to blink, and if I click inside here, I want the blinking to stop. So then I just use inside here a basic case structure like this, and then the output of this key focus is either true or false. That's why I can wire it directly to the case structure like this. And as mentioned, when I'm not clicking inside here, I want it to blink, so then I just use this blink property node. So when it's the key focus is false, I want it to blink, and I just right click, create a constant and set it to true like this. And then when the key focus is true, I want the blink to stop like this. Let's see how these programs work, so I can just run it. So now you see this is blinking to indicate that I need to enter a value inside this box. So I can just click my mouse inside here, and then you see the blinking was stopping. Then I can change the value to 4 or something. I can click somewhere else in my code, and then you see it starts blinking again. And then when I click once more here with the mouse, the blinking is stopped. Then I can change the value to 6 or something, and then I go outside and click somewhere else, and then you see the blinking starts again. So this is a very basic, simple example how you can use the property nodes within your code. Here I'm using a property node as a readable property node, and here I'm using another property node as writable. So then you can easily integrate these property nodes in your application. So typically in all applications you need to use one or more property nodes. Here I will show another example where property nodes are handy to use. So assuming I have some data in a text file, the first column is a time series, so it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up till 20 seconds, and then the second column is the temperature value in degrees Celsius, and here you have the temperature values. The first row is not is just the header, so then it indicates the first column is the time, and then the second one, the second column is the temperature. And then I want to show the values here in a table control, and then typically I need to separate the values from the header. So here in the header I want to present the header, which is time and temperature in degrees Celsius, which you see here, and then in the table itself I just want to see the data which is starting from 0 to 20 and the temperature values like this. So let's see how we can create this example in LabVIEW and using some property nodes on the way. So now we are back in the LabVIEW programming environment. Here you see the file with the data, which I am going to read and open in my LabVIEW application. I am going to put the data inside a table, which I find here. Then this table, I only want to put the data inside in the table, while I want to have a separate header with time and temperature. So then I can just right click here on the table control, visible items, and select column headers, and then here in the blue column headers I want to show the time and the temperature, and then inside the white area, which is the table itself, I only want to see these numbers in these two columns. So let's see how we can do that. Let's start by opening this file in LabVIEW. So then I typically need to have a file path, which I can put on top here, and the location of my file is in this folder. So I just put it here, and the name of the file is measurement data txt, like this. So now we have the file, and let's see how we can open this file inside the LabVIEW programming environment. Then I just go to the file menu. Then we have some basic file operations here. Open file, read text from file, and then just finally close it. These three files functions are needed. I guess there are also other ways to open a text file, but these are the basic ones. So then this is the open file, this one is read from file, and then finally this is closing the file. So then I just, the input, one of the input here is this file path. I just fire it like this, and then the output here is a ref num that I need to put onto the read function. Let's do it once more. Sorry, the ref num here. So like this, and the ref num out goes to ref num in on this one. So then basically on the read from file you have this output text. Then just right click, create indicator, and then you have the text here, which is now on my front panel. So then I just make it a little bit bigger like this, and just run application, and then you see I was able to read this file, which is here, and then put it into this text box. So now I need to separate the contents. So this part should be here in the blue one on the header, while this part should be here inside the table. So let's see how we can do that. So then inside LabVIEW you have lots of handy functions that we can use to make this easier. So then first I want to just right click here, go to string, and then use this one. This is called spreadsheet string to array. So then I need to convert this basic string to an array of 2 dimensions. Then I basically just wire it to the input here, so spreadsheet string like this. And then in addition I need to specify that this format should be like this, meaning it should be strings, and then here in the bottom what type of array. So then I just create a basic array of strings of 2 dimensions like this. So this is a 2-dimensional blank array, and then I just drag in a string constant like this. So now if I wire this one to the input here, it understands automatically that the output should be a 2-dimensional array of strings. So if I just right click here on output, create indicator like this, I'll just make it my front panel a little bit bigger. So then we have the string here, and then we have the new 2-dimensional array here. So now I'm able to read the file in this specific location. This output of this read from text file was this string. I'm using this spreadsheet string to array to put the data into this 2-dimensional array. So now I need to just split. So these 2 should be put here in the blue one, and the data here should be put into the white part of the table. Then I go back to my block diagram. I select some other useful functions. So then typically I can use here under array, there are lots of useful functions. I can use this index array, this one, and then I specify just here row, the row number 0, which is this time and temperature, which you also see here, time and temperature, which I should now put into this blue section of the table control. And now I need to find a proper property node, so then I just right click here on the table control, which I have here, create property node, and then I have a find property node called column header string, which I will use and put here, and this one I should write to, so then I just right click, select change to write, and then just wire the output here into this one. Let's run the application now. So now you see I was able to put the time and the temperature as the header on this table control. So now I just need to put the rest of the data into this white section. Then I can use another handy function which I find here, which is called array subset. Then I just wire like this, and then specify index. I know it should start on 1 because I don't want to have the headers. Then I just wire the output to this table control I have here, directly like this. Basically this should be the entire application, so now let's just run it, and then you see I was able to put the headers here in the header section of the table using a property node called column headers, like this. And the rest of the data I put in the white section, which is the data itself, like this. So this is a handy way to use property node, and a basic example how to do it in your LabVIEW application. So finally, just to improve my code, I can, because I don't need this one, so I can just delete this one. I also don't need this one, it's just a temporary array I used to figure out how to do this coding, so I just remove it. Now I need to have this file path, and I need to have this table. So then my final graphical user interface could be something like this. I can save it with some proper name, and then I just run it. So this is my final application where I'm just reading data from a text file and then separate it, the header and the data itself, using this tab control and then a proper property node for this table control called column headers, like this. I want to show you one final improvement of this application where I will use some other property nodes as well, because here manually I can set the width of the different columns, but assuming the header here could vary, so this could be like this, and this could be like this, a long string. So then I need to, when I run this application, I typically need to manually change the width of the different columns like this, using it manually, but of course I can also make this part of my application. So then I have used two other property nodes. One is called active cell, which I have put inside a for loop, and then the width. So then I read this string that comes from this file. I read the length of the string, both this string, this is a short string and this is a longer string, and then I just basically use this string length to read the string length in each column, and then I just use that to specify the width. So let's just run this application. So then you see this first column was short and the other one is longer. Yeah, no, it's not updated because I haven't saved my file with the new settings here. So now this is the column name for the first one and this is the column name for the second column. So now let's just run it, and then you see it automatically changes the width of the column based on the length of the string. So then I just change it back to time, and this is temperature. I save it and then just run application, and then you see the time column has this specific width, while the temperature becomes larger because it has the length of this string is longer than this string. So now in my final application I have used this property node to set the headers, which is in this case time and temperature, and then I use two other property nodes, namely the active cell, to specify the active cell, and in order to use the active cell I need to put it into a for loop like this, and then in each iteration I specify the width of the different columns like this. So let's just change it to this. So now if I run it, it goes back to this because it automatically calculates the necessary space for each of the columns based on the name of the column like this. So this is a basic example how you can use different property nodes in your applications. Thank you and goodbye.